And journalist Peter Hume joins us now from Paris. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Michal.
So what do we know about the mosque already shut down?
Well, we know that there's 20, or at least 20, according to Bernard Cazeneuve. He made his comments earlier this week. In fact, he had a meeting with some of the Muslim leaders, some of the people that are responsible to the French government, in fact, for the organization, the running, and the supervision of mosques. And without too much surprise, that he got their support. Cazeneuve mentioned that 20 had been closed. More are in the firing line. Potentially, they are going to, the French authorities, that is, are going to keep track of any kind of radicalism that they or the Muslim authorities consider to be emerging in any one of these mosques. There are over 2,500 mosques around the country, of course. There's a very large Muslim population here in France. And one other note of interest, since the year 2012, that is several years before the very bloody attacks last year, in Paris and throughout France since then, 80 extremists had been expelled, according to French authorities. So the net is being cast fairly wide. The authorities are talking tough, and they say they are now acting tough as well. Michal.
And as far as a public response, what are we hearing?
Well, I think you're going to hear slightly different things, obviously, from which sectors of the public you speak to. I think the Catholic / Protestant, largely white French population would give a big thumbs up to whatever action the authorities can take in terms of preventing the spread of radicalization, which ultimately they fear could lead to more terrorist act, homegrown lone wolf attacks, that kind of thing. And if you speak to the Muslims, I think they would express some concern. I think most of them would understand the reasons why this is taking place. And as I mentioned, the leadership of the Muslim community is pretty much towing the government line, as it has done for many, many years in this. So there's no real protest against the closing of some of the mosques. There are some human rights organizations that have raised some concerns, but they are, for the moment at least, pretty much in the minority here.
Peter Hume, I want to thank you, and we'll leave it on that note. Now, give women some credit. 70% of the world's poor are females, but there are organizations now using microfinance as a way to change that, not only financially, but as a tool for social change, too. Loans to women of minority communities can increase earning opportunities, independence, and status, and this is happening even here. Gabby Weiniger went to Nazareth to meet some of these women.
Every morning, Nellie prepares the food to make sandwiches ready to sell for the day. Her shop and her smile have become a staple for locals in the city of Nazareth. But she hasn't had an easy journey to get here. Trained by her parents, inspired by her children, Nellie's mini-market has provided jobs for her entire family, including her son Mohammed, who has special needs.
Frankly, my husband doesn't help me at all, in any way. My children grew up, and they got into university, and it requires a lot of money. What can I do? What can I say to you? So many things pushed me to take this step. Mohammed and all my family members come to the mini-market, and we work together in this private work. It became our kingdom.
Only around 21% of Arab women are employed, unable to find suitable jobs close to home, facing more obstacles than most when it comes to finding work. But in a rising global trend, microfinancers like Sawa are looking to reach some of the more challenged populations in the country, empowering women from poorer households to make a contribution.
We had a goal to improve the economic situation for women, Arab women, to work and give opportunities for earning for the household. What's significant is that we're reaching the women from their homes.
Loans are not the only path for women seeking economic opportunity and can be restrictive in their categories and their potential. And critics say governments and business leaders need to do more to help women move beyond microfinance in pursuit of gender equality. Nonetheless, Sawa has provided close to 2,000 loans to women. And it's not just financial support. Often it can take time to see change in communities. But with microfinance, it's a fast track to independence for the individual and inspiration for the community.
I didn't have a lot of money. I was divorced, alone. No one helped me. But slowly I started to work and make money. Then I started to get a lot of clients and a name, and people started to know me and to ask who I was and that I did good work.
Microfinancing has made women like Matilda successful entrepreneurs. Sawa is now trying to expand its model to additional populations like Orthodox Jews and immigrants, hoping to assist thousands more women like her to achieve the dream of independence.
Now staying in Israel, despite a decision by the Supreme Court, the WAQ, the Jordanian organization that supervises the mosques in the compound in Jerusalem, continues with excavations in the Holy City. i24 News' Matthias Inbar spent the day there and came back with this report.
Jerusalem, the Temple Mount or Noble Sanctuary. Here, these bulldozers have been working almost non-stop on renovations. Despite a decision by the Israeli Supreme Court, the Waqf, the Jordanian organization that supervises the mosque in the compound, has not stopped the excavations. The first excavation took place in the late 1990s.
They dug a 12-meter-deep hole in the ground, a hole that was 40 meters long and 30 meters large. It was a barbaric and anti-cultural act of destruction. They destroyed historical vestiges, and Muslim ones too.
More than 400 trucks were used in this operation, and the hundreds of tons of dirt were thrown out a few kilometers away in the Kidron Valley. Barkai started his project in 2004. His goal, to analyze that very dirt to find more about the Temple Mount's history.
Since the 1990s, the Palestinians have been denying that the Jews had a temple there. They even use the expression imaginary temple. According to the Palestinians, the temple was a Muslim temple even before the birth of Islam, as illogical as that may seem.
And the Waqf doesn't seem ready to stop its activities anytime soon. These images date back to December 2015. This truck was throwing away hundreds of stones from the Temple Mount. Today, Gabriel Barkai's work consists of sorting these ruins to find traces of the past. Here, between two rocks, he found a historical treasure, a 3,000-year-old safety pin dating back to the era of the first Jewish biblical temple.
On one of the stones, we found the seal of the Eimer family, whose members were part of the great priests of the Second Temple with the prophet Jeremiah. That was 7 centuries before our era.
Over the past 12 years, more than 1 million volunteers have been working on this site, and their searches are unsettling. Just last week, these archaeologists were beaten up by agents of the Waqf as they visited the Temple Mount to see the excavation site.
Now, as the Olympic Games are underway with the opening ceremonies tomorrow, an historic moment is marked. After more than 40 years, Munich's 11 murdered athletes receive an Olympic moment of silence. 11 Israeli athletes and coaches brutally murdered at the 1972 Olympics were honored Wednesday in Rio in the most significant tribute yet by the International Olympic Committee. Maya Margit has the details.
Better late than never? It took 44 years, but the International Olympic Committee has held its first official ceremony commemorating the murder of 11 Israelis at the 1972 Munich Olympics. Anki Spitzer and Alana Romano, widows of 2 of the Israeli athletes who were killed, had campaigned for decades to have the notorious event recognized. Speaking before a small crowd of officials and Israeli athletes, IOC President Thomas Bach noted the significance of the tribute.
First of all, I would like to ask all of you to remember and honor the victims of the attacks during the Olympic Games Munich 1972. We commemorate them especially because this was an attack not only on our fellow Olympians, but also an assault on the values that the Olympic Village stands for.
The ceremony was conducted in the place of mourning, a memorial erected in the Olympic Village in Rio ahead of the opening ceremony of the 2016 Games. The space was set up to honor the memory of 15 people murdered during Olympic Games in the past.
In this space of quiet reflection, athletes and everyone in the Olympic Village can honor the memory of deceased loved ones.
In 1972, a Palestinian terror group known as Black September took 11 Israeli Olympians hostage after storming their dormitory in the middle of the night. 2 Israelis attempted to resist and were shot dead. The other 9 perished during a botched rescue operation. Since the massacre, there have been many attempts to hold a minute of silence for the victims at the Games, but until now, only private Israeli ceremonies had been held. IOC officials repeatedly turned down such requests, citing threats of an Arab boycott. It's not the first time the IOC has courted controversy. In 1936, less than a year after the Nuremberg laws were put in place, the committee allowed Hitler to host the Games in Berlin. And in the 1980s, it bestowed the Olympic Order, its highest honor, on Romanian dictator Ceausescu.
Now, bringing to the studio a subject we don't usually talk about but has great impact on our day-to-day life: parking. While the issue of urban parking in Israel is nowhere near solved, paying for parking has become extremely user-friendly. Pango Plus app allows drivers to use their smartphones to pay for parking on the street and in parking lots. The app connects to the municipal parking database so vehicles that have the apps running don't receive parking tickets. And I'm now joined in studio by Eyal Nouri, VP Business Development for Pango app. Thank you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you for inviting me.
So Eyal, I understand you're in charge of the international development of the app. What are you actually aiming for?
We're aiming for taking the successful platform from Israel and duplicate that into different places around the world. You'll be amazed. Just came back a few days ago from New York, and you still in New York need to go and look for parking meter and put some coins. And if the meeting lasts longer, you need to come back to the meter and put again coins. And this is in New York. And this can happen in...
So what's so special about the app being operated in Israel?
The app started from payment for parking, and this is where we started about 5 years ago. But the thing that's so special for us is we didn't stay in the parking payment solution only, but we give a comprehensive solution for the driver. The driver uses it for parking on the street and off the street. He can wash his car with our app. He can pay anything that related to the car, like insurance. He can drive into any toll road and pay with that, and we give him a complete experience. And this is something we already did, but the thing that is most important right now for the driver, we are launching a new service that it's not only you pay for parking, but we also going to locate a parking for you. You're going to drive to the destination that you pick up in your navigation system, and we'll assist you during the way finding your parking.
When is this service coming into effect? Because I'm sure that many Tel Aviv residents will be very happy to be assisted to find parking.
We're actually launching it during these days. People that used to put their destinations in Waze, they will start using our app, put their destination address in our app, and we will navigate them to the nearest parking place using Waze. So we have a complete integration with Waze, and once they reach about 200 meters or 300 meters to the destination, Waze will suggest them, there is a parking available next street. Do you want to reroute and park on the street?
Now, looking at this model, have other cities applied this model? As you say, New York still isn't as advanced. Where else can we see either Pango or a similar device to Pango being used?
Actually, we see that in a lot of cities right now and all over the world, but the unique thing about Israel is the penetration rate. In Israel, more than 1.5 Israelis are using that every day. If you compare the number of transactions we have compared to all over the world, in UK, USA, France, and United States, all together have the less number of transactions that we have here in Israel.
And are people already using your app? I'm very familiar with it, but are people using it to actually pay for insurance? What would you say is the retention rate?
We are doing a cooperation with Wobby, in which they can get a quotation from different insurance companies, and they can pick up the right quotation which is best suitable their needs, and then they can buy through us.
Yeah, Nuri, I look forward to the next stage of Pango helping me as well find parking. I want to thank you for joining us today in studio and wish you the best of luck. And we have to say goodbye to our viewers as well. Thank you for joining us today at the Daily Beat here at i24 News. For anything else, you can find us online, i24news.tv. And to join the conversation, you can follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. I'm Michal Divon. Thanks for joining me today. And journalist Peter Hume joins us now from Paris. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Michal.
So what do we know about the mosque already shut down?
Well, we know that there's 20, or at least 20, according to Bernard Cazeneuve. He made his comments earlier this week. In fact, mosques around the country, of course. There's a very large Muslim population here in France. And one other note of interest, since the year 2012, that is several years before the very bloody attacks last year in Paris and throughout France since then, 80 extremists. He had a meeting with some of the Muslim leaders, some of the people that are responsible to the French government, in fact, for the organization, the running, and the supervision of mosques. And without too much surprise, that he got their support. Cazeneuve mentioned that 20 had been expelled, according to French authorities. So the net is being cast fairly wide. The authorities are talking tough, and they say they are now acting tough as well. Michal.
And as far as a public response, what are we hearing?
Well, I think being closed, more are in the firing line. Potentially, they are going to, the French authorities, that is, are going to keep track of any kind of radicalism that they or the Muslim authorities consider to be emerging in any one of these mosques. There are over 2,500 mosques.